In 2023, the IKEA empire is valued at 40 billion euros, 460 stores in 62 countries, over 200,000 employees worldwide. 1 in every 10 Europeans sleeps in an IKEA bed. But back in 1926, this was all just a dream of a 5-year-old boy from a poor farm family who got his start selling matches to his neighbors. His pockets were empty, his chances of success were slim, and all around him was nothing but the forests and potato fields of Småland. So what turned the son of an impoverished farmer into the creator of an empire that changed how billions of people live? The story of IKEA is a story of how audacity, stubbornness, and a knack for breaking the rules can change the world, and the price that had to be paid for it all. On March 9th, 1926, in the small village of Agunnaryd in the province of Småland, one of the poorest regions in Sweden, a boy was born. His name was Ingvar Kamprad. Småland is a harsh land with rocky soil and long winters. It's a place where only the most stubborn survive, where children are taught one thing from a young age: save every krona, work until you're exhausted, and find a way out where others would give up. Little Ingvar grew up in a typical farm family. His father, Kamprad, constantly struggled with financial difficulties. His mother, Berta, came from a family of German immigrants and instilled in her son an iron discipline and a sense of thriftiness. In Småland, if you want to survive, you have to be inventive, Ingvar would later recall. You have to make the most out of very little. When Ingvar was 5 years old, the world plunged into the Great Depression. For many Swedish farmers, this meant complete ruin. But it was at this moment that the unique character of little Ingvar began to show. While other children were playing, 7-year-old Ingvar started his first business, buying matches in bulk in Stockholm and selling them individually to his neighbors for a small profit. Soon, his product range expanded to include postcards, flower seeds, pencils, and ballpoint pens. On his old bicycle, the young entrepreneur rode around the local farms, delivering his goods. Even then, his brilliant business intuition was clear. Ingvar quickly realized that if you lower the price, you can sell a lot more and end up making more money. I realized that people always want to save money, he said later. And it's not greed. It's a sensible approach to life. By the time he was 10, Ingvar had more money than many of the adult farmers. But more importantly, even back then, he understood his true calling: to make goods accessible to ordinary people. At 17, in 1943, after receiving some money from his father for good grades, Ingvar officially registered the company IKEA. The name is an acronym: Ingvar Kamprad, from Elmtaryd, Agunnaryd, his name and the name of the farm where he grew up. Initially, IKEA was a mail-order business that sold a little bit of everything: pens, wallets, picture frames, watches, jewelry, nylon stockings, anything that could be bought cheap and sold with a small markup. The first IKEA advertisement appeared in a local newspaper in 1945. There were no stores yet. All orders were delivered by mail or on the local milk truck, which made rounds to all the nearby farms anyway. But a key turning point in the company's history happened by chance. In 1948, when Ingvar was 22 years old, a competitor started lowering prices on furniture to push the young entrepreneur out of the market. It was then that Kamprad made a decision that would change not only the fate of IKEA, but the entire furniture industry. He started selling furniture. The first piece of furniture in the IKEA catalog was a table called Max, a simple, no-frills desk, but functional and, most importantly, affordable. In 1951, the first IKEA furniture catalog was released. The company was still operating by mail, with no physical stores. But the catalog caused a sensation. IKEA's prices were 50 to 70% lower than competitors. There was only one obstacle on the path to low prices: the furniture makers themselves, said Ingvar Kamprad in 1953. And this is where a real war began. Swedish furniture manufacturers, outraged by the price dumping, organized a full-on boycott. They refused to supply furniture to IKEA and even forbade others from working with Kamprad's company. For most entrepreneurs, this would have been the end. Imagine, you're 27, you have a growing business, and suddenly all of your suppliers refuse to work with you. What would you have done in Kamprad's place? Let me know in the comments. What seemed like a catastrophe soon turned into the greatest opportunity. When Swedish manufacturers refused to work with IKEA, Kamprad made a decision that his competitors considered suicidal. In 1955, he traveled to Poland, a country behind the Iron Curtain, with a completely different economic system. In a country where wages were a tenth of those in Sweden, Kamprad found manufacturers willing to make furniture to his specifications for a fraction of the cost. But a new problem arose. Transporting finished furniture from Poland to Sweden was ruinously expensive. And then, according to legend, one day an IKEA employee named Gillis Lundgren was trying to fit a Lovette table into the trunk of his car, but it wouldn't fit. In frustration, he unscrewed the legs to put them in separately. What if we sold all our furniture disassembled? This thought became a true revolution. The idea of flat-pack furniture turned out to be genius. Before IKEA, no one had thought to do this on an industrial scale. The very concept of the customer assembling the furniture themselves seemed absurd to many industry experts. Nobody's going to want to mess around with screwdrivers and screws after a long day at work, competitors sneered. But Kamprad understood his customers better. For the post-war generation of Europeans, who had grown up with thrift and self-reliance, the opportunity to save money through their own efforts felt natural. Kamprad not only made furniture assembly accessible to the average person, but also turned the process into a kind of ritual, a part of the overall brand experience. The customer became a co-creator of their furniture, which psychologically increased the value of the purchase. Flat-pack boxes solved several problems at once. Transportation costs were cut by 80%. The risk of damage during shipping was minimized. Customers could take their furniture home immediately without waiting for delivery. The cost of production dropped even further. The company could sell far more products in the same warehouse space, and the environmental impact of transportation was significantly reduced. For example, the Billy bookcase, one of IKEA's best-selling items, would take up 6 times more space if transported assembled. This meant that instead of 6 trucks, the company only needed 1. That means fewer CO2 emissions, less fuel consumption, and lower costs. By the 1960s, almost all IKEA furniture was sold in flat-pack boxes with detailed, wordless assembly instructions, just illustrations, understandable in any country in the world. In 1958, the first full-fledged IKEA store opened in Älmhult, a small town in Småland. 6,700 square meters of showroom space. For its time, it was a gigantic furniture store. People lined up for hours before the opening. They came from other cities to see the furniture everyone was talking about. On the very first day, so many people visited the store that the police had to be called to direct traffic. "That cheap junk will fall apart in a week," claimed the head of the Swedish Furniture Manufacturers Association in an interview in 1959. He had no idea that in 10 years, his own factory would be a supplier for the rapidly growing IKEA. Another revolutionary idea from IKEA was its product naming system. Instead of faceless numerical codes or random names, Kamprad created a thought-out system where product categories were given names from specific thematic groups. For example, beds, wardrobes, and bedroom furniture were named after Norwegian towns and villages like Hemnes, Trysil, and Malm. Tables and chairs were named after Finnish geographical locations like Bjursta and Poäng. Bathroom items were named after Swedish lakes and bodies of water like Lillången. Fabrics and curtains were given female names. Garden furniture was named after Swedish islands. This system had several advantages. First, it created an authentic Scandinavian feel. Second, the geographical names were much easier for customers to remember. And third, it helped avoid language problems during international expansion. The catchy Scandinavian names sounded equally exotic in Germany, France, or Russia. I have a bad memory for numbers, so I decided it would be easier to remember product names if they had some meaning, Ingvar Kamprad said in 1985. In the 1960s, IKEA stood on the verge of new challenges that could have destroyed everything Ingvar Kamprad had built over the last 20 years. In 1965, IKEA opened its flagship store in Stockholm. It was a massive risk, a store with 45,700 square meters of space, the largest in Northern Europe. The opening day turned into absolute chaos. Thousands of people stormed the entrance. The service system couldn't keep up. The lines at the checkout stretched for hours. Many customers, tired of waiting, started taking items from the self-serve warehouse shelves themselves. And here again, Kamprad saw an opportunity in the problem. Instead of hiring more staff, he completely redesigned the store concept, creating the famous IKEA self-service model we know today. The famous one-way path through the store was born, a winding route through the showrooms that forced customers to see the entire product range before they reached the checkout. Most companies placed their products around the perimeter. Kamprad did it differently. He completely controlled the flow of customers, creating new paths through the store. Another brilliant decision was the in-store restaurants. Kamprad noticed a simple fact: hungry customers don't buy furniture, they rush home. And so, the famous IKEA meatballs were born, a dish now known all over the world. The 1970s brought new challenges: the oil crisis, economic stagnation in Europe, rising production costs, but Kamprad used the crisis as an opportunity for global expansion. In 1973, the first store outside of Scandinavia opened in Switzerland. 1974, Germany. 1975, Australia. 1976, Canada. By the end of the 1970s, IKEA had transformed from a regional Swedish company into an international corporation. But the most dramatic events were still ahead. 1985, IKEA opened its first store in the United States, in a suburb of Philadelphia. The American market was considered unconquerable for European furniture companies. Experts predicted failure. "Americans will never assemble their own furniture," wrote the Wall Street Journal. The first 2 years were indeed difficult. American consumers were confused by the self-service concept and DIY assembly. But by the 1990s, IKEA had become a cult brand in the US, and today there are over 50 stores in the country. The fall of the Iron Curtain opened up huge new markets for IKEA in Eastern Europe. In 1990, the first store opened in Hungary. In 1991, in Poland, the country where it all began 35 years earlier. In the year 2000, IKEA came to Russia. The opening of the first store in Khimki became a national event. Thousands of people stood in line for hours. By 2022, there were 17 stores in 11 Russian cities. In March of 2022, IKEA announced the suspension of its operations in Russia. Later that summer, the company announced the sale of all 4 of its Russian factories and its final exit from the market. This marked the end of the Swedish brand's 22-year history in Russia. In Ukraine, IKEA officially began operations in 2021, opening its first city-format store in Kyiv. The company has no physical stores in Belarus, but serves orders through an online platform. In Kazakhstan, the first IKEA store opened in Almaty in 2020. One of IKEA's key innovations was its unique store layout. While traditional furniture stores were organized with straight aisles, IKEA created a winding path that went through all departments. Most retailers try to make it easy for a customer to quickly find a specific item. "We want you to see everything," Ingvar Kamprad explained. IKEA stores are built like a maze. This isn't a random design, it's carefully planned retail psychology. Studies have shown that by following the winding path, visitors spend 30% more time in the store and make 60% more unplanned purchases. Realizing that customers might get tired during the long journey, IKEA placed rest areas along the entire route. In addition, the stores have special children's play areas where parents can leave their kids under supervision while they shop. Unlike most furniture stores, IKEA turned shopping into an immersive experience. Furniture is displayed as part of complete room settings. IKEA was one of the first companies to encourage physical interaction with its products. In IKEA stores, you can lie down on any bed, test mattresses, and sit on all the chairs. According to corporate policy, employees do not wake visitors who have dozed off on beds for up to 2 to 3 hours. The company understands that a comfortable sleep on a mattress is an important factor in the decision to buy. Over 3 decades, from 1990 to 2023, the value of the IKEA brand grew from 1.6 billion to 40 billion euros. "We made good design accessible to the many, not the few," Ingvar Kamprad said in 2007. The Billy bookcase, the Klippen sofa, the Poing chair. These names are familiar to billions of people. 1 in every 3 homes in Europe has at least one piece of IKEA furniture. By 2018, when Ingvar Kamprad passed away at the age of 91, his company had completely changed not only the furniture industry, but also the way we furnish our homes. Today, IKEA is a global empire. 460 stores in 62 countries, over 775 million visitors annually. One of the most important secrets to IKEA's success has been its well-thought-out product matrix. We don't sell individual pieces of furniture. We sell solutions for the home, Kamprad explained. The IKEA product matrix is built on several principles: stylistic unity, price coherence, modularity, and compatibility. All items within a single series, like Hemnes or Malm, are designed in the same style. The company deliberately creates products at different price points within the same style. Many items, especially storage systems, can be combined and expanded over time, and all products are designed to be compatible with each other, even from different series. This system allows customers to create cohesive and harmonious interiors without needing special design skills. Combined with affordable prices, this creates IKEA's unique value proposition, a designer interior at an affordable price. IKEA is one of the few companies in the world that offers products for almost every aspect of home life under one roof, from furniture and kitchen appliances to textiles, lighting, and even food, including the famous meatballs. This all-in-one approach allows customers to furnish their entire home within a single brand. IKEA was one of the first companies to understand that buying furniture is not just a functional necessity, but an emotional part of creating a home. The company turned the process of buying and assembling furniture into a kind of ritual. When you assemble a wardrobe yourself, you put a piece of yourself into it. It's no longer just a wardrobe from a store. It's your wardrobe, Kamprad said. The company creates an emotional connection through several key stages: inspiration, with showrooms that help customers visualize products in their own homes; interaction, the ability to touch and try out the furniture; involvement, through self-selection and transport; creation, the assembly process that builds a special bond with the item; and finally, pride, the satisfaction of a job well done. This emotional journey is what sets IKEA apart. Modern IKEA is actively implementing environmental innovations. By 2030, the company plans to use only renewable or recycled materials. IKEA's charitable initiatives are focused on helping refugees, supporting education, and improving housing conditions. The IKEA Foundation allocates over 200 million euros to charitable projects annually. But the main legacy of Ingvar Kamprad remains his philosophy: democratic design, accessible to everyone. Throughout his life, Kamprad himself remained true to his Småland roots. Despite his multi-billion-dollar fortune, he lived in a modest house, flew economy class, and drove an old Volvo for over 20 years. He often ate in IKEA restaurants and always took salt and pepper packets from the establishment as a souvenir. Wastefulness is a mortal sin. IKEA should not be an elitist company. It is not for the chosen few. It is for everyone, Ingvar Kamprad said in 2013. The story of IKEA is not just a story of a successful business. It is a story of how stubbornness and loyalty to one's principles can change an entire industry. Ingvar Kamprad proved that sometimes the greatest opportunities are hidden in the most serious obstacles. When suppliers refused to work with him, he found new ones behind the Iron Curtain. When transportation became too expensive, he invented the flat pack. When the checkout lines got too long, he created the self-service concept. Today, IKEA is present in many post-Soviet countries, though to varying degrees. There is one store in Kyiv, Ukraine. In Kazakhstan, a store in Almaty. In Belarus, there is online delivery. But in Russia, after 22 years, the company completely ceased its operations in 2022. But the main legacy of IKEA is the democratization of design. The concept that beautiful, functional, and stylish items should be accessible to everyone, not just the elite, has changed the global furniture industry forever. Perhaps the most important lesson for all of us is this: never take the existing rules for granted. Sometimes you have to break all the rules to create something truly revolutionary. In a world where everyone strives for luxury and exclusivity, Kamprad proved that the greatest luxury is making beauty and quality accessible to everyone.